think, as Mickey was saying, we have the full committee present, some of us online, others in person. So good afternoon, everyone. And I think we can call our meeting to order. Mickey, is it correct that we have the full committee?
You were just missing Heather.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. So let's move to our second item, which is the public comment. And this is a period devoted to comments by the general public. Items on this agenda. No discussion, action, or vote may be taken on this agenda item. And you will be afforded the opportunity to speak on individual public hearing items at the time they are presented. Are there any members of the public present, Nikki?
There isn't.
So we move on to the next one. So we're asking for the approval of the agenda for this meeting for June 11. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move that we approve the agenda. Jeff Ulmer.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Alexa has seconded. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstentions or against? Nope. All right, so our agenda for today has been approved. I'm going to ask you for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our last meeting. That was April the 9th. Anybody?
Before we do that, it was brought to my attention that Kenneth Ruffin had joined on his phone, and he's marked absent, so I just wanted that to be corrected.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I didn't have any other corrections, so I'll move that we approve those minutes with that correction.
Somebody who seconds that motion with the amendment of or the correction suggested by Jeff?
This is Jerry Shefzik. I'll second it.
Thank you, Jerry. Those of you in favor of approving the minutes for April 9 with the correction that was requested by Jeff, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions or against? Nope. So we have also approved our minutes for our April 9 meeting with the correction that was requested by Jeff. Our next item on the agenda is you may remember that at our last meeting in April, some of us had already acknowledged that we had completed a training that is required by the state. The Nevada Ethics Commission's ethics training program is a series of videos that all of us must complete to be able to successfully serve our community. So I'll start by saying I have completed that training. I did so before our April meeting, and it's important that all of us committee members acknowledge verbally that we have completed the training. So if anybody would like to make the acknowledgement.
Yes, so far we have Alfredo and we have Jeff that has completed.
Mary, I think, was about to state that. Go ahead, Mary.
I acknowledge the completion of the training. Mary Sabo, for the record.
Okay, thank you.
I think I missed that because I missed the last two meetings. So I
Okay,
need to make up for that.
Yeah, if you don't find the link, Alexia, let me know, and I'll be happy to forward you the email. So that's just a series of quick video trainings that we are supposed to watch to be able to successfully serve, this committee. Right?
Okay, great.
Tammy could resend out to everyone tomorrow too. That doesn't have the link. Yeah, we'll resend it. Yeah,
I'm halfway through it, so.
awesome. It's not riveting. Sorry.
Smack filled, it's seizure filled.
Well, so this probably will be coming back, I think probably for hopefully the last time at our next meeting, by which hopefully all of us have completed training. Our next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is to discuss on roles and responsibilities of our committee members.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and just a reminder that we wouldn't be able to see you all on the presentation, so just please holler out.
Share and then window.
No?
Yeah, I think it should be under there. Or not?
Definitely don't want that. And usually if I click on it,
Others.
okay. Okay, so I wanted to start with, apologizing. Last month, we had kind of a short notice to cancel the meeting. As I had met with the DA, some things came up, and later on in this presentation, we'll get to those things. But I wanted to first start this presentation with addressing, or at least showing the committee what has been done in the last 8 years as far as just strictly permanent public art has been, and have some conversations about locals and non-locals, and then get into the evaluation committee. So essentially, it's not a long list. For a long time, you had project managing was solely I. When I started this program had 2 staff members, maybe 3 part-time staff members. And then we were assigned 1 October, and that kind of held up some things as well. So the good thing about 1 October is it kind of expanded. It allowed me to expand on part-time staff and full-time staff. Eventually getting Stephanie on board as a full-time staff member. In the pandemic, we brought on, Tammy, and we expanded the program with Pearson. So there was a lot of expansions that have happened in the last couple of years, but you're not seeing a lot of that in permanent public art. So there is that list. So I wanted to show local versus non-local. So we're solidly committed to hiring local artists. A portion of those projects are local artists, as you can see: Absolute Ceiling, Community Kamade, Earthrise, Valley of Harmony, Made in the Shade, and our 6 apps that had happened, or 5 apps that had happened throughout these last 8 years. Non-locals have been Beat Feet, Desert Winds, which were recently in the last couple of years. Wanna Play and Whitney Recreational Center mural, which is our first mural project. So I did want to point out, or kind of show also how many people are applying for these. I think it's important for this committee to understand that these numbers are quite low, because we haven't been going out to the bigger websites to promote. We've been keeping it local for the most part. So Absolute Ceiling, 11 applied. There was 5 semifinalists, and all 5 of those were local. Community Kamada is 10 applied. There were 3 semifinalists interviewed, and all 3 of those were local. Earthrise, 10 applied. There were 3 semifinalists and 3 were local.
Mickey, I just want to check if you're presenting something that we're not seeing online.
Yes, I'm presenting a lot. Let's see.
It was stuck on the first
I
page
just,
for me.
I just see the first, same here, I just saw the first page of the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
And this is different from the one that was sent with the packet, yeah?
Yes. Okay, we should be on Valley of Harmony. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that one.
So Valley of Harmony was 8 applied, 3 semifinalists, 3 locals. Made in the Shade is 12 applied, 3 semifinalists, 2 locals. Beat Feet, 8 applied, 3 semifinalists, 1 local. Desert Winds was 10 applied, 1 semifinalist, 0 locals. So that one we had kind of experimented with just taking the top scored pick because the threshold of the requirement was so high at 75,000 or above. Wanna Play is not applicable in this. This was utilizing park funding, so it wasn't arts plan, and we did not do any of the traditional call look on this. We went out for quotes for a couple different artists. Whitney Rec Center, 6 applied, 3 finalists, 2 locals. And then ZAP are all required to be locals, or at least that's who we've hired in the past. So I wanted to show you this easily kind of shared grid. So if people are asking or wondering on...
Vicky, we're still seeing the Valley of Harmony slide. Are you advancing the slides or?
I am.
Oh,
I think, I don't know what, we're seeing not the full screen presentation, just the PowerPoint window, which was not progressing as you were clicking. I can hear you click it.
Yeah.
It didn't really go on our end until.
Let me do it as entire screen, and let me just do it as entire screen. It'll be a little bit problematic, but hopefully you'll be able to see these PowerPoints. Are you able to see the PowerPoint?
that's excellent.
Yeah, now it looks like it's full screen, but maybe you want to advance the slide and see if it works.
Yep,
That
it
works.
works.
Yeah, that works for me.
Perfect. I'll just do a quick run through just so you can see the imagery quickly. Okay, and then there's kind of that snapshot, although, so you're looking at the top 5 projects are all locals. The next 4 are out-of-towners, and then you're back to locals, ZAP. So I just kind of want to show that picture because I think a lot of times, you know, we'll hear from the community, especially when things come up about non-locals, you know, then the community's questioning what's going on there. So I did want to show you and kind of capture that, see the imagery and see that there is a balance there. As far as the art committee role in evaluation and procurement of public art, this is where when I started meeting with the DA, she pointed out that the The initial county arts plan had a lot to say about this section in particular and what the roles were for the art committee versus Parks and Rec and Clark County. And I want to preface this by saying that we do appreciate your time and your effort that you spend on this and your expertise. And so we're here to listen, and we are here to make improvements where we can. When it comes to procurement and these evaluation committees, we do have it's a multiple array of stakeholders that we do have to listen to. And that is why the art committee has a seat in the evaluation committee, but it's not for the art committee to have all of the say in the evaluation committee. So we do need to balance that a little bit. But I am, of course, open to listening and hearing what these issues are, so that I can try to better assess how to kind of move forward. It just structurally with the DA starts to be like, well, wait a minute, what were we doing with the workshop and that kind of stuff? So I wanted to preference it with these items. So, it says it in quite a few areas. It says it in the snapshot and in the artist selection, how these are divided up. Specifically, that the Parks and Rec Department will assemble a jury consisting of artists, arts professionals, and interested citizens who reside or do business in the neighborhood of the site. What we tried to do to kind of help alleviate some of the concern of, are these art professionals or artists that are sitting on these evaluation panels? So one of the things that we've done is we did the evaluator call, and that's open. It's on our website. It's open for anyone to sign up. Of course, the focus is art because it's artists that are going to know about this call, right? It's running through our social medias and our newsletters. So we have, last time I looked, it was around 50 plus participants in that. And what we've been doing for these last couple of calls is we've been looking at their zip codes or their qualifications to identify who we want to invite onto this evaluation committee. Because there was always like an additional person. Sometimes it's 2 additional seats, sometimes it's 1 additional seat. I know I've kind of gone over this breakdown quite a few times, but.
Is there a set number of people on this committee?
So typically we go with 5. Now in the arts plan, it talked about all the way up to 11. Purchasing doesn't care to go that high. And for a while there, I pushed. I was like, oh no, let's do 7. Let's try a higher number. In my experience, the higher the number, the more confusion there is, and the disconnect happens. So then you get people that aren't involved in the meetings, they're not actually communicating, or they end up just MIA, kind of bouncing out. That's been my experience. Now we can try it and we can go up higher than that 5, but specifically right now it's been 5. And then can I go over the categories real fast? Yeah. Okay. So the categories, I don't have a slide for it, but typically what we tried to do is we have a voice from the commissioner's office. That means that could be a citizen that they communicate with that is in that area of that artwork. It could be one of their staff members. It could be a variety of different people, but that's one assignment is they get to choose somebody to go represent them on that panel.
That's a geographic area that the commissioner's over.
Right, or it might be specifically, for instance, one of them that you just approved was a bicycle park. And so the commissioner might assign a bicycle coalition person to it. So they might not actually live in that area, but they may have a higher stake into that specific park or sculpture or whatever it is. The next person that's pretty spot on, that's always a consistent stakeholder, would be somebody that's of the facility. So if it ends up being in a park, maybe that is the architect that's been hired to design the park, or maybe that is the project manager of RPM, or it could be that it's in a facility and it's a Parks and Rec supervisor. So it really just depends on what that art call is and where it's going. The third consistent is your art committee member. Now, the other two members are kind of a grab-all. So it could be that we take two from that community engagement call that we've done, and they're two from them. It could be that there's somebody else, a stakeholder that's highly involved, and they get brought in. For example, we had a Metro police officer that had approached the county about ZAP up in the mountains. And so naturally, he became one of the stakeholders. Not all the time is somebody that brings us the project, the stakeholder or evaluator. So we have different levels going on there. Yep.
Is it prerequisite that those stakeholders be part of that commissioner's area, or they could be anybody?
There is no prerequisite. So it just depends. A lot of times it's just a conversation. Maybe it's a conversation with me on the project, or several of us in the project having a conversation of who would fit that bill. Sometimes maybe it's even an idea of this conversation's interesting. Maybe we need to add a little bit more art element to it. Maybe we need to add some more heavy hitter of an art professional. Or maybe we need maybe it ends up being, I don't know, the 7-Eleven owner that's yelling, you know? I mean, and it's true. Like, we had that in, well before my time, but in Laughlin, they had a case of a gas station owner that was just raising chaos, right? So sometimes it's nice to put them on the evaluation committee, let them, your worst enemy can be your friend, and they could end up loving art. In the famous words of John Curran, which was end up being like a chair of City of Las Vegas's art commission, as he had stepped down from chair, he had said, he was like, I came on this board and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't understand it, didn't even really care about it. And through his role has made it, he's made it a good advocate for what he does downtown to put art within it. So, sometimes that works too. Sometimes it fails. I mean, inherently, sometimes it fails, right? We could get together a group that just says, whatever, So we're navigating that.
So on those, before you move,
Yes.
it it seems to me, having gone through this process a couple of times at different levels, all the way from the smallest with the ZAP project to, a large, the Desert Breeze sculpture, that I'm the only art person ever on this committee. And if you go back to that slide that showed the breakdown, there were supposed to be artists and art professionals, and then committee member or business. So there are like 3 different categories that we're pulling from, and we're only pulling 1 from the first 2 categories and then 4 from that last category. And I think that has led to committees that often select very safe artwork, both in terms of practicality and safety, but also in terms of conceptual, aesthetic, and accessibility. And I would like to encourage, Parks and Recs, when they're selecting these committees, to try to pull equally from those 3 different areas. I think that having 2 or 3 art type people on these committees would help the county make better selections for the community. For example, the Desert Breeze, there was a ZAP project on that same park campus, pulling in an artist who's invested in that community already, Bobby Ann Howell or someone. I saw her work when I walked around there. I think it would help get the community the best artwork for that location. The other thing on that call, or on that list, this committee was supposed to set kind of I can't remember the language from that slide, but the general scope of the project. And I think sometimes it feels like maybe the jury is setting that scope when it comes to content, instead of this committee, and perhaps this committee should be more involved in that plan.
They definitely set the goals, so they are definitely setting the scope, which is, in my experience, vital.
But the slide says this committee is supposed to set the scope, so maybe there needs to be some sharing there. And we can, it's the first bullet point under process snapshot, general scope of work. This committee, in my experience, is really usually only set kind of the media in terms of scope, which is hugely broad. And then that selection committee has gotten more into the specific goals, like we wanted to reflect our community or our park, or those type of things. And so I think that maybe this committee could play a stronger role in the scope of the work.
I think I never want to say no, and I think there's abilities to work that in. My concern on doing it during the budget process is they're so long-term, having a general scope kind of allows that movement where it needs to go. But yeah, let's think about how, do you have any ideas in mind? You can.
Well, I mean, I think that it would have to be a different item on our regular meeting. As the project moves maybe more close to having that jury selection committee assembled, that this group have a discussion of the general. So we've already decided that it's a mural, or we've already decided it's a sculpture, but maybe this committee then before that group works to, set some of those general scope parameters. I had mentioned in our last meeting, maybe a rubric for projects to help guide the jury committee. Maybe this committee helps align some of those rubric items so they have an idea of how to score.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful. The challenge is going to be is because you're sitting in an open meeting law area, it's how we go about that. And it's the same challenge we had with in a sense that, the committee, so the county went down this path quite thoroughly because the 1 October committee wanted to make those rulings, but then they were subject to open board meeting laws. And so what portions of the rubric can come out versus what can't. And so ultimately what county had decided was that these overarching rubric points can be made by the committee. It was the staff that have to fill in those blanks, which goes right back to the challenges. I think what we could do is I could talk to the DA and see if, after we come up with those more detailed questions, with maybe the help of 1 or 2 of you, is being able to share it to you individually or in groups of 2s may help. Because that was it's just been a challenge with 1 October. It was interesting. So, but I would love the help.
The committee's selection for this pool of jurors, is that made by, is it Parks and Recreation? Who there makes those choices?
On who so I identified there's 3 of them that stays consistent.
Yeah.
And then the rest is, the other 2 just depends on the project, on decisions. So ultimately, most of the time it's coming up against me making that decision, but it's always based on variables that are happening surrounding the project, during that project, why that project exists. There's a whole faction to it. Sometimes it's easy and you go, oh yeah, it's going to be this. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult.
So you have a list of evaluators? How many say?
A little over 50. Yeah.
Are they art people or just?
Ideally, you would think they were art people. We only promoted this call through our social media, through our newsletters. Have we vetted them? No. However, when we go through it, we're vetting them based off of, proximity to the artwork and what they've described as interests in art or their bio. They've had to provide a few items.
The thought, if there was some way to connect that group with, the 2 open seats for something else.
Yes, not all the time can we connect both. If we're trying to stay at the 5, not all the time can we connect both. But there's other times where you know, there are identified artists within the group that aren't just coming from that evaluation group and the art committee. So there are self-identified artists, and those might be musicians, they may be dancers, there's theatrical. So, you know, there's more to it than, right?
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing that I don't know if it would work for increasing that kind of roster. But I think those people who have public artwork in proximity of another piece that's going up kind of have a little bit of a vested interest in that new piece that comes up. Had like 100, well, I don't know, a billion ZAP artists who've come through the pipeline, and one of those utility boxes is within 2 miles of every project that we're probably going to ever propose. If we could tap into that group, might also be a really good way to move these ZAP first-time public artists for them to see behind the scene in the selection process and learn, you know, how to kind of just sharpen their sword for when they go after a project.
Yep. You know, it does. It's definitely a resume builder, and, you know, they're asking these things on artist residencies and applications. Like, have you been involved in these things?
I don't know if you can twist those.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, you know, with being on the art committee, my first experience being on an evaluation panel is for the family courthouse mural, and I just wanted to say that I think staff did a great job coming up with guidelines for the evaluation panel in a way that made sense for arts people and maybe other evaluators with less of an arts background, kind of to level the playing field a little bit, you know, before getting started reviewing the submissions and giving like really concrete things to look for. So I do think that, you know, the process of staff dealing with the panels can maybe be informed. There's ways to like beef up that process, I think, that you're already kind of working on that I think are very helpful.
Fredo, I think you're muted.
It's just a quick question. With the emphasis on ethics that has been, you know, raised in the state, do the adjudicators and members of the selection committees need to have some form of, you know, training, you know, to avoid any form of conflict of interest or?
Technically there's a form that needs to be signed, and, you know, it's a document that purchasing has put together. It still says purchasing all over it, so they get concerned as we have moved to these calls internally instead of through the purchasing department. We're still working through those kinks of like, oh, did we make sure that everyone signed it? Like I said, I recently showed it to purchasing and they were like, but this is our form. And I go, okay, well, then I guess we need our own form, right? No, they don't need ethics training, but they do need to sign that document that says that they're, you know, not tied to any of the artists. That in itself is problematic. So there's a lot of there's a lot of techniques and a lot of conversation around evaluation committees. You know, there's issues. There's equity issues. There's issues of like, you know, you three gentlemen probably know all of the artists in town. And so how do you evaluate and how do you sign that document that says you're not tied to any of these people when we're tied to all of the artist community, right? So, and we had those issues in one of them where all of a sudden we're questioning, well, oh no, there's a finalist and that finalist is best friends with one of our evaluators. Now what do we do? So there's kind of messes there too. So I've changed processes based off of experience. In that case in particular, that's why we are bringing in the evaluators so early and allowing them to create those goals. One of the reasons why is so our evaluators could say like, okay, I'm hands off on this one because I am going to be an evaluator. So I'm not going to actively be like having full on conversations with artists about it, because your role also as an art commissioner is to promote these things and encourage artists to apply. But all of a sudden you're placed in a role where now you have to evaluate all of them. And when it comes to money, especially a project that's worth $500,000, there are considerations of lawsuits and that type of stuff. Like it can get serious pretty quick. So
I know when we do selection committees at the College of Southern Nevada, we get a list of the applicants and then can recuse ourselves if we have a close relationship. They don't consider friendship as being a close relationship. It's a financial relationship or a familial relationship that they let us get out of the search committee work if we have those. But maybe something along those lines for the jury committee where they can recuse themselves would make sense.
yeah. And that is how it works through like Bonfire. You would get the list and pull up, and then you kind of go through all of them and then sign your document. Fortunately, and we should all cross our fingers, I think we're ready to move on purchasing software that it's the same software Nevada Arts Council has for their grants program. And that will make everyone's life a little bit easier when applying. Evaluators, you know, the artists and the administrators over this program. And so things like that should be a little bit more automatic, luckily. Because, yeah, it's a little bit of a gaping hole for us right now.
Yeah, to the categories
Is this
that
all,
you've mentioned.
is our,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, this is all beholden to like it falls under NRS, chapter 332? The Nevada revised statutes for purchasing?
Are you talking about procurement? Yes.
Yeah. Is that like a reference point?
I would assume it probably is.
Yeah. That's what we have as well. And some of the rules for the city of Las Vegas and some of it, you know, it doesn't always apply, but we try to like follow that as closely as we can for our art projects.
I was just going to add to what Jeff mentioned after Mary's comment, that in addition to being, you know, family ties or financial, possibly the idea of collaboration. So if you had professional collaborations or had in the past professional collaborations with an artist, probably, I mean, there must be some strong enough linkage, even if at the moment you don't have any financial or family ties, but perhaps there's history there that prevents you from being objective and, you know, answering those questions. Probably is a good way to sort of identify the conflict of interest. And moreover, I wonder if there needs to be, as these committees are for adjudication are selected, if there needs to be an alternate member always in place that, say if there are 6 applicants and I have a conflict of interest with a couple, perhaps I should just be removed and have someone else take my place, right?
Yeah.
So I've been listening, and I think the suggestion of adding more local artists to these evaluation panels is a good idea. But I think based on what we're talking about, conflict of interest, there's an increasing possibility that there may be people, in collaboration or have other relationship with local artists. I just want to throw it out there. I don't know how possible this is, but a lot of times where we were looking at architectural awards in local communities, we reach out to jury members from out of town so that there is no conflict of interest, hopefully, with local people. I don't know if that's something that's been discussed, or is it possible to do, because a lot of these meetings are increasingly online. It may be more possible to include out of town artists or arts commission people that will have reduced relationship with local artists, that may be able to help that perspective but not have potential conflict of interest.
It's interesting, huh? Could be some kind of exchange.
So you said that you had a discussion about this agenda item with the DA. What's the DA? The DA didn't talk to you just about nothing. They have a concern.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so.
What was their concern?
Again, it's that we all have roles to play. The art committee has been assigned their role, and the Department of Parks and Rec has been assigned theirs. And that procurement is, it is a complex organism that can have legal issues in it, and that we do have to, as Parks and Rec and as the DA and purchasing all kind of work together, we do have to work and understand all the different stakeholders. So while we're listening to you, we do have to listen to these other entities as well. And so ultimately it does sit in our region of, we get to make those choices. But as far as I go, I want to listen and hear what you have to say, and see where I can improve within our structure of our government. But she does want to firmly make it aware that Parks and Rec does get to make those decisions. So make it clean on a legal point. But it's a good conversation, and
I think that ultimately that makes sense as long as those other criteria are addressed adequately.
Yeah.
I think the rules are there for a reason. They need to be adhered to.
Yeah. And that's the legal is always going to be more cautious. So I think we could have those conversations in separate points, and it's easier to have those conversations, I think, different times or different agenda items, right?
My perspective, Mickey, I think the only place, as long as one adheres to the rules, everything is fine. The only place where there could be something going wrong is with the conflict of interest and how that is identified and managed. So that's why I would, if anything, I would try to focus on, what parts of that are managed by say this committee or parts of recreation, and what belongs to purchasing, and make sure that everyone is able to really clearly and effectively without conflict of interest. Because other than that, I think, so long as you adhere to current rules, then there's nothing more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Would it make sense? It seems like the conflict is the bridge between this committee and the jury committee. Would it make sense to have juries that don't have a member of this committee on it, but instead have a good representation of artists that are not on this committee? Because that would create a clear division between the role of the arts committee and the role of the jury committee. I mean, I'm concerned that the message will be lost between the two, and it would require this committee to be even more clear about the scope of work and what we're looking for in terms of that artwork. But there isn't anything in that document that you shared that required someone from this committee to serve on the jury, just artists, art professionals, someone from the community/business.
A way to address what Jeff is bringing up, I think it's a good suggestion, Jeff. Perhaps a member from our committee just serves as an ex officio to clarify the position of what was discussed at our committee, but perhaps we don't have voting, right? So just participate as an ex officio member, helping shepherd the process and answering questions about intent, etc., right?
The way I've learned is can't hurt to try, right?
And
Yeah.
I mean, it would put more burden on Parks and Recs to find artists and art professionals who, I mean, we're already saying that we're a small community and that's hard to do.
It's hard to, because they, then they want to apply for it too. But I think there's enough pull there and enough interest where things aren't always like, oh yeah, it's something I have interest in, or I don't have interest to apply, but I have interest in being a part of it. Let me see what I could do. Let's see what.
I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. I don't know and of course I would want input from the other committee members, because it's a big pivot on the process that you guys have used for a long time.
Yeah.
To me, I as I say, I don't really find a problem, but if the DA does, or if there's someone who does, evidently we're trying to help make the process as fair as it can be, right? So I think there's great value in serving on the adjudication committees for a member of our committee. But at the same time, if they seem to see that creates some conflict or some problem, I can see that, we don't need to be there either, right? Make sure everybody feels comfortable with the process, right?
And maybe maybe it's something that can be taken back to the DA for clarification if they,
Yeah. It's DA and it's purchasing, I'll go back and have that conversation with about how that works for, and I'm blanking on the name of it. Be an advisor to the evaluation committee.
you have to manage a lot of unpaid positions in this process.
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. That is part of it. Well, and again, like I said, we're learning, and we're trying to evolve with each one of them to kind of figure out, okay, well, what went wrong there? It's a difficult spot to be in. I could say that because you see things happening as a project manager, and you're trying to balance how much do you get involved, how much do you stay out of the conversation, are you overstepping as a staff member, do you need to retract? Yeah, it's an interesting process. So like I said, there's a ton of conversation out there between all these public art administrators about what's that right formula for art committees, or not art committees, but evaluators of public art. So, yeah, okay. We'll go back, we'll do some brainstorming and see what we can come up with, and then keep you apprised with what we can keep you apprised with.
You know, I just think going back to that statement about artists, art professionals, and then those three categories, the first two are arts people, and only usually had one arts person.
When you say arts person, you're saying a visual art.
Well, no, I mean, I'm a
professional.
It didn't say visual arts, but it said artist, art professional, and then committee member / business owner. And we have to determine, you have to determine based on the project what the right people are for that.
Yep.
Again, a business owner could very well be the owner of an art gallery, right? Because that's a
Right.
business, right?
Yeah. Yes, or a chef, or, a musician, or yeah, I mean, there's, at times there have been more than what your consideration is, or which projects you've been on. Yeah. That's why we expanded to the evaluation group, as you had started to speak up about that. Like, well, wait a minute, So yes, yeah, we'll keep on pushing forward.
And keep us posted, Mickey, because ultimately, I mean, we serve on this committee because we try to be as helpful as we can. So
100%.
it's important for the DA to recognize that these voluntary positions are trying to help. And so, but if they see us working in a different capacity or doing something different, well, that's okay, right? Ultimately.
Yes. No, that is correct, and I do want to reiterate that we do value and appreciate what you're bringing to the table and having these healthy conversations. To me, it's vital, right? Otherwise, why are you here? Why are you driving here, being here, spending your time with us? So if we're not listening and not having good conversation, then that's unproductive, right?
And that's what I wanted to say about, because there has to be a commitment. And I know we are most likely committed, but some of those other people that might get on that and say, oh, well, I don't have time to do that, or meet all of these times and then just kind of fall off, saying that they initially would like to do that, but then in the end, ultimately, it's like, just let it kind of fall off.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you don't attract that kind of person.
We've experienced that as well, for sure. We have experienced the gamut on these evaluation committees, from people that are highly involved to people that won't turn on their video camera. So it's an interesting roller coaster, that's for sure. Okay, cool. Well, let me share the next slide. It's somebody.
Alfredo, I think you're muted again.
Sorry, yes. I was saying that I was asking if we need to make any more remarks regarding item number 6, or was asking if we're ready to move to item number 7.
No, actually, you still have one other discussion on this one would be it's going to be about I want to have a discussion about the procurement of prefabricated sculptures and how can that process potentially happen? Because we don't have a process. So it's just a discussion item for right now. Share the entire screen and then let me get up this PowerPoint. So the arts plan slightly kind of spelled out some parameters, but I think the discussion really needs to be when should we be purchasing prefabricated art? What stems it? And maybe is there some type of additional selection or some way that we can bring it to this committee for some chime in on it before it's all kind of like said and done deal? So yeah, per the arts plan, it says in special circumstances, the county may accept unsolicited proposals, particularly donations, but those proposals will be evaluated primarily on the basis of artistic merit. In the case of the proposed works, on the reputation of the artist, or with completed works, the artist's reputation and quality of work itself.
So I have a question about this. So is this the idea behind this item is that the county will go out and find potential sculpture that's already made to be added to the county's collection, and then perhaps find a spot for such pieces, or the other way around potentially?
Currently, the conversation is exactly that we had it happen with Desert Breeze, with the time constraint that we had on the Desert Breeze Event Center. The county chose to purchase a piece from Fired Up Management Company. And so several pieces were proposed to the evaluation committee, but we didn't really have a process. And I don't know if we could go too much into the valuation portion, but what I kind of need is, if we are going to purchase, and we did have that other artist that came to us early in the fall last year and it said, oh, hey, I had this piece, is that left to centered? Do you want to purchase it? How do we want to handle those possibilities? And how can we make better choices on these pieces, right? So
yeah, so I was gonna I want to kind of wonder about the process. So just kind of thinking out loud. I think one way is, and when I think the new year starts and you have kind of allocations of so many potential locations, is one way to say that you select certain locations that may want to receive a sculpture of certain scale. And that's kind of where you, instead of going off for a call and start an evaluation committee around that, you look at potential of purchasing. Or that's one way of going from location to art piece. Or the other way of looking at it is looking for specific, having somebody propose something, or, working with these kind of curators, such as Fired Up Management or others, and find a spot around the art, so to speak. So that's kind of looking at it from two different ways. Then my question is really, how do the committee evaluate these pieces when they're already made, and it's not a custom creation that was created for a specific goal that this location and the committee come up with.
Yep.
So I think,
Sorry, go ahead.
so I think there are kind of two different elements here. There's one, the unsolicited, the donations, the people who have a sculpture and want to either give it to the county or sell it to the county at a lower price perhaps, just to kind of get it out of their inventory. And then there's, a committee approved project and site and that, and where the county goes, and I don't know the relationship and how Fired Up and the county got together on this, whether the county asked Fired Up to submit or whether Fired Up just submitted unsolicited. But, when we kind of have a plan from the Arts Committee for a project, swapping out for a prefab project seems like a kind of big jump, and probably should get input from the committee. I understand that we have time constraints with Desert Breeze, but that process seemed very rushed. And like extremely rushed.
If I may, and to reiterate a little bit of what Jeff is mentioning, one thing is, donations or art that is given, as we said, well below its price, as a means to just, give it to the county, right? So that's one thing, right? And I don't object in any way to that. So we're more than happy to receive any art that is donated or given. But if we were to go in the direction of scouting pieces, as opposed to making requests for proposals, I get a little nervous and anxious about that. I think that creates a lot of potential for conflicts of interest, for unfair practices, for I really don't think. I mean, I personally would vote against following that approach. As I say, I distinguish donations and gifts from this committee actually scouting pieces that we wish to bring, that are already built, right, elsewhere. So that makes me a bit anxious. I don't know how others feel. I think it would create some problems in terms of the procurement process. It probably needs some form of exceptions or someone to engineer the process in a way that satisfies the intent of competitive and fair process, right?
Keep in mind, if you remember the presentation I gave a couple months ago about procurement, technically, the county has the right up to $1 million to procure a professional service with, just there's basically a few processes that we have to do and go up in front of the Board of County Commissioners in order to make that procurement. But there are processes that are available. The cases would be if there was a specific area. For example, there was a case where one of the cities had been asked to procure public art in their football stadium, and then the asks were of a certain caliber artist. But when you're looking at artists that are at a certain caliber in their career, they stop applying for these public art government projects, right? These are not things that they're chasing when other people are hiring them outright to create pieces. Hank Willis Thomas would be another one where he's making these great large public art pieces for cities and for museums. They're privately securing them. So there is that where you're going to have a certain caliber of artists. City of Las Vegas is currently doing that for a piece where they wanted to hire specifically Justin Favela. They said, look, he's a significant artist within our community, and he's not applying for these things, and we want him to have a piece within our city jurisdiction that's a public art piece, right? In a community where he was born and raised. So there are times where you're going to want it. I think it comes down to like, what is that artistic merit? What's those drivers why you would want it? But we need a procedure of how and why, I think, is the consideration. The last part, and then I'll let you speak, sorry. The last one is if you remember, we do have a backlog of sculptures. And so we do want to try to clean up some of that backlog to get those off the plate so we can start utilizing the funding, and that you get actual funding that you could utilize. Right now, we're so stuck on these old projects, these sculptures that are a high price dollar. And if we could procure some of these sites in the next year, we could get them off of the books so that you could focus on real projects that you want to focus on, not projects that were assigned 6, 7, 8 years ago that are probably uninteresting to you at this point, right? So that is the caveat, or that's kind of my push for it.
Right.
Is it problematic in ways? Sometimes, yes. I think it's how we do it, and I think that if we could set up some good guidance and processes and let you all think about it for a bit, and I think we could come up with a good solution that's fair and legal, but does what we need to achieve.
You made two very good points, Mickey. I recognize that, for example, there might be appetite from the commission or even a private donor to actually pursue a particular piece or a certain artist, and I think that's perfectly fine. And I also recognize the second point you make, that a way to actually move projects faster might simply be to identify existing pieces that could be that fit sites well. I think Alexia was going in that direction. If you have a particular site and you find art that could work really well there, that's another one. I just feel sometimes, I mean, thinking um, of kind of the spirit, if and I may be just misinterpreting our charge, but I think the spirit of our committee tends to be to identify and promote, art and go through these requests for proposals so that people, people who might not have the caliber to actually be commissioned actually have a shot at getting the opportunity to build their careers and start up and thrive. So, but I recognize, I think you make excellent points. So, I think every approach ought to be considered, obviously. So you're right.
I agree with you, and I fought that fight for 8 years, and I'm realizing we need to kind of resolve some of these projects so we can get back to those roots. But we also need to kind of get those pieces cleaned up.
Would there be an opportunity, for example, on some of those larger pieces to put out a call for existing sculpture instead of having kind of a relationship with just one management group? If we modified our scope for one of our existing projects and switched from it being a developed, commissioned proposal into being a purchased, and that way, it could be presented at a meeting. We could maybe modify that scope during the meeting, and then it could go out as a call for existing work. And that way it could reach someone who has a piece waiting in the back of left of center gallery to go, as well as fired up management in different places that perhaps have work ready to go. I think already existing work has some definite benefits, but the way that it's approached by the county and the committee is important. I think going after an artist who's a high-end career artist is something also really cool, and that too probably needs to at some point go to the committee, whether that decision is made by this group or by the county and then shared with the committee. I would think that having that two-way communication would be important.
Mickey, I was going to ask, what was the cause of the backlog of sculptural project?
Sorry, say that one more time.
What's the cause of this backlog you're speaking of on sculptural projects?
Yes. Yep. So mainly the backlog on the projects, especially sculptural, is you have just me doing sculptural projects. So it was one full-time staff member in the arts plan from the concept from 2013 when it started. We received our second staff member 2 years ago. So Stephanie's focus is on gallery and education. She does help out with some project management. Eileen has just started with her first sculptural project with wetlands. So I'm supervising staff, overseeing the arts plan, and then trying to project manage, and then assigned 1 October. So that has backlogged significantly a lot of these public art projects. So good news is the program administrator position had opened up, and since had closed, it was internal interviews or internal application process. And so interviews are on Thursday, and then we will see who's administrator from there. And then we will have 3 positions in public art.
So I have an idea of that I wanted to check. Could you treat these curators such as Fired Up Management, Shell Queens, MBC Art, or others as a qualified list of art curators that the county work with? Again, I'm trying to lean on similar situation with architectural services. Obviously, this is a lot different than that, but would you
Yes.
look at it like you're not just going out and selecting Fired Up for this project, but you curate a list of qualified art curators that the committee can review or the staff can review, or whatever that process of review is, that you
Yep.
make a short list of these agencies. And then you could work on selecting what might be the right kind of projects for them to go out and solicit artists instead of having the county staff work on them.
Yes, that is correct. There, LA City? I think it's LA City. I don't know. There's a city and a county. One of them does have that type of call. And I do think it's worth us looking at that and having that someplace within our organization. Qualified list right now with purchasing and in Clark County is only for real property management and public works. So I am working with purchasing to try to understand how we're able to do it and how they facilitate it. Currently, it's been a conversation that I've had where they come back and say, well, why don't you just do the call? And I'm like, okay, but I don't, we need some processes up there. So yes, it's something we want to do. I think it's needed. And Alexia and I heard, we were having a conversation with Michelle Quinn recently because we're going to do a presentation in the upcoming week. And Michelle Quinn was talking about the same thing. Like, well, how can the professional curators come in and maybe curate a piece for our community? So it's a way to give that opportunity too.
Yeah, and perhaps there's still a way for us to create goals along with the facility and the community representatives to help direct these curators as they go out and select the pieces or solicit artists that they have connections with to create a piece for those goals, so that we don't lose that idea that as a custom piece that we currently put out calls for.
I interpret the silence to mean that perhaps we're ready to move to our next agenda item.
Yes, I think so.
So our next agenda item is the discussion on budget commitment for capital projects within property, roadways, and trails owned or managed by unincorporated Clark County.
So, Alfredo, you had requested this conversation. I did a little digging, and our Clark County code says that we're getting no less than 6% of room tax collection room tax collection commission funding, and then not less than 6% of county's share of special ad valorem capital projects tax. The combination apportioned annually for the program shall not exceed 2.25 million. I found a couple things on a website, just kind of talking about incorporating public art and planning, that public art can be pretty viable for, you know, not just making a sculpture, not just working on designs, but keeping our community engaged in a project. You know, these things could be temporary projects, they could be permanent projects. One in particular we tried to do, the RTC had a planning committee that was talking about Maryland Parkway. What are they going to do with Maryland Parkway? Are they going to put in rapid transit? Or are they going to put in a bus? And it was a long, drawn out process. Went on for quite a while. And we came in. Eileen helped project manage that one and bring in artists to temporarily exhibit public art within the streetscape. It was a fun little project, happened on Maryland Parkway in Flamingo. So there are opportunities for sure for us to come in and utilize these fundings for these types of projects. The issue is currently, right now, is our funding. And so I pulled up District A's current funded projects. So these are ad valorem construction projects. This is a selection of just District A. And so you have a playground replacement, you have a softball complex, a rec center, a trail, tennis courts resurfacing, splash park modernization, playground replacement, a fire training center. You have a covered parking, a community center, and a center expansion. So that's just a selection of a few of the projects in District A. Those total $58 million. If we were to take 1% of each one of those projects, that's $581,502. That's like right at our high end of what we've been receiving the last couple of years. A lot of times we end up receiving less. So as trying the direct assign funding at this time is not a possibility. This is one district out of 7. All 7 are quite robust in this funding source. And until we actually convince the county that the cap is no longer necessary, that 2.25 cap needs to be removed because these projects are construction, they do take a long time, we're never going to have that resolve. The second thing is the caveat on our end as staff that we got to get our projects done before we could go to the county and say, can you remove that cap? Because we're not spending 2.25 and we have a bunch of old projects that they keep on saying, well, you're not finishing these projects. What are you doing? There's definitely programs out there like this. When I was in Reno, I talked to Reno about their program. they get funding like this as part of their, they get 1% that goes to public art. And they have it written that the public art could be on property of the facility that's being created, or it could be off of the property, just someplace in the vicinity. And they're a 3-person show as well. So they are very short-staffed. And currently their city has 4 or 5 projects that are in the works, and they're happy to have the work, but it's a lot on their plate. So, but you could imagine if we were immediately assigned all of these projects, we couldn't accomplish them. And we would be behind, and we're going to look, we're not going to look at a great light, right? Why did we ask for these things, but we can't achieve them?
No, that's a great point and explanation, Mickey. I think on the other hand, it just helps us see that perhaps we need to find ways, and we as a committee, to help you find ways in which the procurement and the execution of these processes could be in some ways expedited. The big advantage of the model that is tying a percentage of the construction is that usually you can, as you basically get the RFQ for the architecture projects and the firms and so on, you do the art sort of closely thereafter, and there could be a lot of integration. I'm thinking, in the one that was recently inaugurated, I served on the jury, and Alexia is a member of the firm who designed the building. I think that process could have probably be sped up if things had been integrated better from day one. Not saying that it didn't work out great. I'm just simply saying that processes can always be optimized, and the artists, for example, working closely with the architectural design team, can also begin to see what's the spirit of and the ideas of the project, and maybe that helps them become inspired as well. But I completely understand your point. I'm just simply seeing that the cap, for starters, limits the amount of art that Clark County is going to see. And just as a side note, this is completely not related, although I think it is. Our city has become kind of a hub for professional sports. I just learned, there's going to be, I think, 3 games of Copa America, which is a major soccer tournament. And for example, they're constructing a temporary gym in the parking lot of Kellogg Seeger, a soccer facility, and they're really cleaning the area, and so there's a lot of money going towards these events, and I don't think arts are being supported in the same way as, say, the infrastructure for professional sports or sports tournaments that come to town. And I don't know. I mean, that kind of frustrates me a bit, if I can just say that, but I really understand what you're saying. So evidently we're at a difficult point, and there are other things that need to be resolved before you can increase the funding for the arts. But at the same time, it'd be nice to eventually see that, right?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong on it. I think we do need to advocate that they take a long time. It has been founded time and time again in the arts that it is important to come in at the beginning, and then that way you have a better process from the beginning. But that means that, like with Silverado Ranch, I mean, that was years of the artists waiting to get started to create that work. And so there's a delay in funding and time that sits there, and it clogs up our funding source. So that it would be one thing that absolutely needs to be fixed. And then, yes, on the note to advocating about art and arts funding, there is a group in town that's been meeting and discussing about a arts advocacy day in legislation in Nevada in November. So once we get that date, it is specifically for Southern Nevada to advocate for funding down in Southern Nevada. So I will definitely spread the word and let you know on that date and what is going on there. But I do feel that time of change is kind of now. People do need to start advocating a bit more, getting more involved, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, there's a national day of, it's called Parking Day, which, you know, cities throughout the US typically, and it's initiated by landscape architects where they convert a parking spot into an art installation. So they just take a parking stall and make that. So for example, projects of that nature that are very quick turnaround, because they're obviously not, they're temporary installations, might also be a way to, you know, get more, probably, you know, another way to sort of deal with the backlog is to also support faster, perhaps temporary types of projects that could also, you know, show results and move quickly, right?
Hmm?
You know, I've thought about that as
I
well.
can't find anything on their plans that are calling out. You said
We've talked before about, you know, bus wraps and billboards and, you know, those type of things that could move pretty quickly. The Sphere has gotten a lot of good publicity from their competition with allowing UNLV art students and even CCSD elementary school students to apply and get their artwork on the Sphere. I mean, we've got tons of space, and if we have the resources to cover all the county's vehicles with elementary school artwork, it might be a way to spend a lot of money quickly, and then we can ask for more money next year.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
would
It's
you
probably
please
on your.
share the Arts Advocacy Day information? I know you and I have talked about it as we're preparing for our conversation next week about policy advocacy, as in there are several state assembly people who are looking for legislation proposals for next year. And I don't know who are behind the group for the Arts Advocacy Day. Perhaps we could join part of that conversation and see what are the ideas that we could help increase funding. You know, I don't know if we're able to propose retroactively requiring these professional sports teams to do anything for the arts, but perhaps there's some to be done for the future
don't know where they
things that are coming to town.
can't seem to figure out.
And then I don't know if there's anything we could do within legislature about your staffing issue, but that seems to be a thing where you have funding for the arts, but you don't have funding for staff to make the arts happen. So I think more conversation should be had with others who are interested in the subject of policy action.
I'm sorry, I just looked down at my cell phone and Heather's been on this entire time, stuck under attendees. So Heather, you can speak now if you unmute.
Call in user 5.
Yeah. She might have gotten cut off too. It's okay, maybe we lost her. Alfredo, I'd probably move on.
Yes, and maybe if Heather is there, maybe use the chat if you'd like to add something in case the microphone is not working. Anyway, so thank you, Mickey, for preparing that report, because I mean, I think it's helpful to know and also to highlight that currently we're experiencing some roadblocks to move forward, right? So it's important for the committee to help in any way we can. Our next item on the agenda is number 8, the report by the staff regarding monthly summary of activities.
Okay, and then I just want to double check out time or just tell staff we only have 15 minutes, so just keep it short and honor the committee's time. As I slowly pull this down. Here we go.
Our full scope workshop for June will be a presentation by Derek Diza of Influential Walls, an educational mural agency that connects top-tier muralists to innovative schools and focuses on delivering business education for artists. Derek's presentation will be focused on the business side of arts, how he went from artist to agency owner and developed a product of a niche that solved a problem. The presentation will be followed by a question and answer segment where attendees will have a chance to ask Derek questions about the topic discussed. The workshop will be recorded and posted on the Clark County website and social media platforms. This event is on Tuesday, June 18th at 10 a.m.
At Government Center, the Rotunda Gallery, we currently have Living in the Desert. It opened yesterday. It's going to run until Thursday, July 18th, with a reception on that very same day from 6 to 8. Basically doing a play on words on and the misspellings of desert and dessert to kind of come up with this cool concept with combining desserts and the desert. The artist did a really good job in portraying that. You definitely go see it. And the exhibition is juried by Brian Paco Alvarez. At Winchester Gallery, we currently have Queer Monuments, and that's juried by Emily Budd. It just opened today, and it runs until Thursday, July 25th, with a reception that day, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And this is gonna be for Pride, and looking at placemaking for queer people as is something that Emily focuses in on her practice.
So currently now, Pearson Gallery is our Juneteenth exhibition. This is the first group exhibition that we've had with Pearson Gallery. So this is curated by Bo Robinson. It's exhibiting now through Saturday, July 20th, with the reception this Friday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with remarks and our award ceremony being at 6:30. So we invited artists to submit our artwork that commemorates Juneteenth, interpreting the theme, freedom, and what it means to them, however they see fit. So, yeah.
Then another open call that we recently released was Reassembly Required, and that's being juried by Jeannie Hua. And the deadline for that is Sunday, July 7th. We're asking artists to come up with any kind of collage or awesome collage art and think about the creation of no works through like the manipulation of materials and what it means to put things back together and taking things apart.
So we have our call for solo exhibitions now open at Pearson Community Center. submission deadline being July 16th. We've also got an application workshop, so going through those steps of applying, how to fill out the paperwork, and what the process would be if you were to get accepted. So the solo series call, I like to see it as a call for like emerging artists to present a solo exhibition. So we'll sort of walk them through the steps of like curating, installing, and deinstalling, and just presenting their work to the public.
For youth arts, right now we have Brent Holmes at Whitney. This should be up towards the end of June, and he will install later at Overton. And then here we have Karen Castaneda. I believe she was also a finalist at Paradise Recreation Center. And this is her temporary public art display at Parkdale. She has another one at Melvin Ennis, which is a flower fixture on the ceiling. And both sites have decided to keep the artwork. And we have Origami Butterflies and Cicadas by Ross Takahashi right now at Pearson. This should stick around till the end of June and then later travel up to Laughlin.
All right, so social media insights for Instagram from March 8th through June 5th, 4,848 accounts have been reached. 39.7 are followers, 60.2% are non-followers. Impressions, 47,909. External link tabs are 365. From Facebook, March 9th through June 6th is 3,595 accounts reached. 18.2% of them are followers and 81.8% are not followers. As far as engagement goes, we are down 4%. And these actions include likes, shares, comments, and links. Most popular content type for both platforms. First place, and this has been a rebranding, are always our art calls. Second place, workshops. Third place, photos of events, dedications, workshops, etc. Advertising, we're still running the double scoop and Black Image ads, which for Black Image, we are changing out like the exhibitions, art calls, and events monthly, so those do change.
And then always we want to just promote that we do have opportunities for artists that reach out to our office through RCC Public Art and to ask for those one-on-one sessions with staff. I think it's really beneficial for artists to be able to come in and discuss their application needs. So Silverado Ranch, this will be the last time you see it. We did have a dedication on May 11th of 2024. We did have the Poet Laureate also spoke at the event, at the opening ceremony, and it's a great piece. West Flamingo Senior Center, this piece is currently being completed by Sierra Slintz, and because she's going to go out of the country for a bit, we're looking to do the dedication sometime in August. The Family Courthouse mural, we end up getting back a ton of applications. The reason for this uptick on the applications was Homero had submitted it to some of the national websites, Cafe, that type of stuff. And so we did get a ton of submissions. So 68 of those applications passed our initial requirements of making sure that they had the right items in the right place, that type of stuff. But 68 applications in our current process, which is emailing somebody a 1,000-page PDF and asking them to fill out evaluation on an Excel sheet is awful. And so the evaluators are still evaluating. Some of the evaluators have gotten it in and others are still working on it, which is absolutely understandable.
For the Pearson Community Center Pillar Project, we have identified a videographer. His name is Zachary Freed, and he's from Las Vegas. We have, the evaluation team has selected a muralist, and their contract is now pending. And this call was mostly local, and a lot of the artists that applied for Omero's call or the courthouse found this call as well. And the information I'll give for now. So we rewrapped the exterior part of the modular building at Von Tobel or Melvin Ennis Recreation Center. So that's new. We got it ready for Made in the Shade, the new sculpture that's in front of it. And tomorrow, the interior will finally be rewrapped.
And so Made in the Shade by Domsky Art was installed and then dedicated on May 17th, all on the same day. It's fun. We are still pending getting our website up and going and some type of permanent postcard that we can put out at that site for people to have, or people in public art can also share. This will be the last time you see this piece here too. So Homero is also working on this Walnut Recreation Center mural, and he's working on recruiting his jury members. And we're also waiting to go to space planning, which is real property management, to get some determination on how to address that concrete that most likely has some type of anti-graffiti on it. And then also clearly the ask that the existing banner be removed, the signage be removed.
So Parkdale Amphitheater mural is something that we recently started earlier last month. We asked artist Cody Womble, which is a local artist as well, to do some community engagement with the Parkdale community. And after his community engagement, he's going to design and paint a mural on the outdoor amphitheater in Ted Parkdale.
Out of this too, we started to discuss, okay, we're asking artists to do community engagement, but we don't really have any definitions. So we've since I've released to the staff some community engagement definitions, and then I've asked them to come back with, any ideas they have. And then hopefully maybe the next meeting, I'll be able to share those ideas and then get from the art committee your ideas on this community engagement. Like we're asking for it, but our local artists don't really know what we're asking for. So it's important to have some broad definitions for them to understand, oh, you don't want me to teach an art class. Yeah, no, that's probably not what it is. Or, oh, you don't want me to just have the kids paint on the wall and call that art. So, yeah. Homero is also working on this piece, the Hollywood Recreation Center. If you remember, it's for that yellow section, the wall at the on the portion of the building facing Hollywood Boulevard. And same thing, he's working on a jury and he's working on space planning for that. Homero is also working on this project. This is also with Sierra Slents. This has been a long time project where we hire Sierra each year to do a new section of this patio at Winchester. And so she's continued on and doing great work. The Des Breeze Event Center area sculpture, this is this prefabricated art piece that we discussed a little bit earlier today. We're working up with Fired Up Management to get this piece installed. It's just a lot of intricate parts that we're working with right now on trying to figure out, the existing LED is not commercial grade, so where do we go from there? And how do we connect LED to controllers and all the fun stuff that goes along with construction?
I have to.
Yeah, you're right. Sunset Park, a survey was released in March. We've been gathering those surveys. I've also been working on setting up the jury members, and it's slowly going. But it's something that I want to release, or I want to get with the jury members here pretty quickly and get this call released when we have, when we're able to with purchasing. And
our informative art at the Paradise Recreation Center, like I mentioned earlier, our artist is Karen Castaneda. She is recently hosting her first community engagement with kids. She is scheduled to host 2 more in the upcoming weeks. And then after her community engagement is done, she will be designing her final design for the event. And then for the wetlands play area at the we have created a survey to get some feedback on what the community would like to see as far as sculpture in the wetlands play area and in the general wetlands area itself. We are awaiting approvals for that survey, and we are also waiting for approval for the scope of the project from our jurors.
So this project is at the courthouse. We're still working with City of Las Vegas on our permitting. We have had some delays there. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we get this resolved. It's been a very long project for what was supposed to be a temporary project. Brett Bradley is assigned the majority of our maintenance work, and we had with the arts plan closed out this project so we could release this funding, this $146,000, which reminds me I need to get it transferred back from RPM. We need it back. So however that metaphorically works in government, right? But this project's closed. We're going to kick that back to our general maintenance and then work with the artists to resolve this issue through our maintenance money, which is sitting at like $130,000 right now. And with due to time, I'm going to go ahead and just move it over to this screen and show you. So we have added additional assignments to Eileen and Homero's plate at this point. We are currently working on 18 projects, and then we have 6 projects on hold. So that's we're getting through a lot of projects, and in the art committee, or sorry, in the arts plan this year, as we totaled up the permanent major projects along with some of this community engagement projects, and if we're counting each individual Zap box on its own or Zap artists, we secured 35 permanent pieces into the collection this year. So it's quite significant. So we do have other presentations that we wanted to share with you. We'll push that on to the next committee meeting. And Alfredo, I guess the question would become is, in the agenda item, 2 agenda items from now, typically we do not hold a July meeting. So when you get there, we need a quick discussion, see.
And I think we're moving to the agenda item number 9, which is identifying emerging issues by the committee at future meetings. And remember that this is not an action item, so if committee members have items that you would like to have discussed in future meetings, please feel free to share them at this moment. Hearing none, I think we move on to agenda item number 10. And are there any members of the public?
There isn't. No. Sorry, no.
Oh, yeah. So here none, then I guess we can adjourn. As Mickey mentioned, July, typically we do not have a meeting, right?
That is correct. Typically you don't. It's not an official canceled meeting. We just typically take it off because people want to have a vacation.
And I know that both Jerry and Jeff, as well as myself, who are working for, universities here in town are on our time off, and I do plan to take some of it. So July typically is the month where I'm not available. So, but certainly look forward to, seeing everybody back in August, right?
Yes, please.
But with that, I think we'll have a great summer, and we'll see each other hopefully in person for our August meeting, so we can adjourn our meeting. So have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Not one of those lucky people that get the summer off, but